Who's the first wide receiver in your top 5 must pick? Who is going to put up the most fantasy numbers this year?
The number one dude I'm taking off the board is Tyreek Hill. He's the biggest threat to score on any play in any situation in the NFL. He has the best quarterback in football throwing it to him. And you know that Mahomes could put it anywhere that Tyreek Hill is on the field. But when you dig into Tyreek's numbers, he loves scoring touchdowns, and that is a big advantage in fantasy. 28 touchdowns from 40-plus yards in the last 4 seasons. So you're getting the points on their reception. You're getting the points on their yards after catch, and you're getting the touchdown as well. Coupling that with he is the biggest, big play guy in the NFL today. You can't lose with Tyreek Hill. 58 touchdowns in 74 career games, and Sammy Watkins left, and you got a brand new offensive line. Give me Tyreek Hill all day for the first wide receiver off the board.
Okay, absolutely not mad at that. I'm going to surprise you with this one, and for Gary, he's not going to believe it. Give me Calvin Ridley.
Whoa, okay. I respect it, though. Okay, cha-ching. Yes, sir.
Last year, 90 receptions, 1,374 yards.
Yep.
He was tied for 5th in touchdowns, for 5th in yards, but he had 9 touchdowns. He's going to be the number 1 option all season with Julio gone, so his numbers will move up. The Falcons will more than likely be trailing in a lot of games this season.
Yep.
So they're going to be passing a lot. So he's going to be that option, and he's going to put up numbers. It's very often that you get wide receivers playing on teams that aren't winning that put up outlandish numbers because their quarterbacks are throwing early and often, all game long, and then they start throwing against prevent defenses.
Yep.
Those are guys that put up those numbers. Those are what we often credit Matt Ryan with, is empty stats. That's what it's going to be. Calvin Ridley is going to be the recipient of the empty stats. And I mean, the defenses for all the opposing teams are not going to want they're not going to want the rookie Kyle Pitts to get off. So they're going to make sure they don't give him any love. Ridley is going to have a great year. I think he will be your number 1 fantasy wide receiver for the season.
Jamila and Wesley are going crazy about Derrick Henry and the Titans and the Steelers and Super Bowls. Y'all got to calm down in there, man. Go sit in the corner with the dunce cap, Jamila.
Yeah, I mean, the fact of the matter is,
goodness,
the Steelers haven't won a Super Bowl since 2008, and the Titans just don't have any. So both of you go sit somewhere.
Yeah.
So who is your number 2 guy?
Number 2, Devontae Adams. Now, he does fall to number 2 because of natural regression. 300.9 fantasy points in only 14 games and 18 touchdowns last year is really hard to top. But ironically enough, I won't rule it out for the best route runner in the NFL. One of the biggest guys at the position. We know he can make a lot of catches, and we understand the skill set that Devontae brings to the table. We saw what he was last year with Aaron Rodgers. But at the end of the day, another reason he could be your second best wide receiver. Let's not forget that Corey Linsley's gone. David Bakhtiari did tear his ACL, so you don't know when he's going to come back in. Rodgers could be affected by that. Like we've seen in some points in Aaron Rodgers' careers where he's taken over 40 sacks in a season. I'm not saying that's going to be the case, but you can't count that out. I think that's why you got Devontae at 2. It's hard for him to top what he did last year.
Yeah, man, I'm not mad at that either, but I'm taking your number 1 guy at number 2 for me. Give me Tyreek Hill.
Huge play guy.
87 receptions, 1,276 yards, 15 touchdowns. That touchdown number is massive.
Yep.
I mean, he's easily a threat at any given week to go over 200-plus yards. In a fantasy league, he can put up quarterback-type numbers any given week. I mean, he did that in a half last year.
Yeah.
I think that was against Tampa Bay. He went over 200 yards in the first half. So, I mean, he's capable of that. Pat Mahomes, I mean, what else do we need to say about that guy? He's going to get him the ball. Tyreek Hill is basically uncoverable. I mean, he's absolutely one of your number 1 options. My only reason I would put Calvin Ridley over him is because there will be plenty more games for the Chiefs than the Falcons where the Chiefs have a sizable lead and they stop throwing the football. So who you got at number 3?
Number 3 is Stefan Diggs, and you can even argue that Stefan Diggs would be the wide receiver 1 coming into this year, especially with him and Josh Allen clicking the way that they did, leading the NFL in receiving yards. And his touchdowns, though, are a reason that you got to put him at the 3 spot, maybe even lower for some people, but I think he's got to be a top 3 pick. And, he's small at 6 feet, so he's not going to get a lot of red zone targets. And when you look at a Tyreek, when you look at potentially a Calvin Ridley, when you look at a Devontae Adams, even an Adam Thielen, they give you a lot of touchdowns that are really valuable in this fantasy game. And what's crazy enough is he was drafted as the wide receiver 20 last season on an average, came out as the wide receiver 3, and they did bring in Emmanuel Sanders and Matt Breida, so they are going to have a little bit of touches taken away from Diggs. Nothing too major, though, so he is a safe pick at number 3. Your third best wide receiver off the board in your draft.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that Emmanuel Sanders and Breida actually are a bad thing because I also have Stefan Diggs at number 3.
Right.
With 127 receptions, 1,500 plus yards, and 8 touchdowns in a PPR league.
Led the league in catches, right?
Yeah, 127 receptions. I mean, he was catching everything.
Right.
But he led in yards also.
Yep.
He led in both.
And I want to say targets, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he just ate it up last year from Josh Allen.
Only thing he didn't lead in was touchdowns. But bringing in another weapon is actually going to take a little attention off of him, so he may actually get more production because, I mean, they throw the ball a lot out there in Buffalo.
Absolutely.
I mean, Josh Allen he's attempting to have an MVP caliber season. The Buffalo Bills have Super Bowl aspirations. They're going to be looking to stick it to teams and run it up, and they might be one of those squads that actually take leads and they keep throwing the ball.
Right.
I think he's going to have another great season just like he did last year. He's going to keep running scores up. He is absolutely a great fantasy pick. If the other two guys are off the board, go with Stefan Diggs.
100%.
Who you got at number 4?
DeAndre Hopkins. And with as lethal as D-Hop is, he did only have 6 touchdowns last year, but I think that does increase with Kyler getting a full offseason, building that chemistry, and just being on the same page overall with DeAndre Hopkins. And you're going to have Kyler healthy potentially all year, which is really going to be a major factor. But when you talk about consistency with DeAndre Hopkins, it's absolutely unmatched. 150 plus targets in 6 straight years, 14 plus points per game in 5 of the last 6 years. You can't argue with that. He's a major threat anywhere on the field. He'll make any catch. Best hands in the NFL. I mean, he's DeAndre Hopkins. We know who he is, from the Texans to the Cardinals and whoever else it might be. This is your wide receiver 4 off the board in your draft.
Okay, my wide receiver 4 off the board is Devontae Adams. 115 receptions, 1,374 yards. He was actually tied with Calvin Ridley for yards. 18 touchdowns.
Ridiculous.
The touchdown number is just massive. That's killing in any fantasy league.
Yep.
I mean, he's got Aaron Rodgers. He's his favorite target. He runs great routes, has great hands, and he's got a nose for the end zone, obviously getting 18 touchdowns. So, I mean, he's a great pick. I just think these 3 guys ahead of him will get more work than what he will this season. Only reason I've moved him down the board, if any of these guys are gone, Devontae Adams, absolutely. And you probably get someone else to pick Devontae before the other ones anyway.
Right.
Just off of namesake and the fact that he had 18 touchdowns, they'll take him. So, hey, if he's available, pick him up. If not, get one of these other guys.
100%.
Who you got at 5?
Number 5, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say DK Metcalf. You see year 3 is usually a big time when wide receivers really jump off the page, and this is year 3 coming up for DK. He finished as the wide receiver 2 or better in 50% of his games, so he shows you that consistency there. And that's as a sophomore in the best division in football. Walking into year 3, I think DK Metcalf is going to be absolutely huge. And when you look at the fact that he received mid-grade targets and was producing top-tier numbers, 1,000-plus yards, 10 touchdowns, and he could have had more had obviously things went his way, with Russell Wilson. But I think that's all the reason to buy into him at the number 5 spot. And I'm kind of feeling a Mahomes to Tyreek Hill thing. Russell Wilson can put it anywhere on the field that DK Metcalf is. If he would drop less, he would easily be a higher ADP. And don't be shocked if you see 12-plus touchdowns from DK Metcalf this year. Take him at number 5, no question.
Oh, yeah. I mean, folks are going to think we actually collaborated on these things beforehand because I also have DK Metcalf at number 5.
Let's go.
Generally, we don't agree this much. But, I mean, 83 receptions, 1,300 yards, 10 touchdowns. I mean, he had a great sophomore campaign last season. I mean, y'all saw the chase down with the tackles. That just was an example of the speed. The dude is a monster.
Yep.
And I mean, he's a perfect complement to Russell Wilson and his deep ball ability. The accuracy and the ability for Russ to actually extend plays and get him the ball, he's a surefire fantasy wide receiver pickup for your wide receiver 1. So, I mean, Russ is going to be throwing a lot. When he starts to let Russ cook, their defense isn't the greatest. They did pick up a little bit last year, but they're going to be highly dependent on Russ putting up points, and Russ putting up points means DK is getting the ball.
Yep, 100%. He's going to be a major part of that offense.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm pretty sure he looked a lot better last season than he did the season before as far as him and his drops. I mean, that was an issue in college.
Yep.
But he seems like he's gotten better at it progressively each season. He's working. I mean, I didn't even think he ran great routes coming in, but he's made strides each year he's been in. I think he'll continue to make strides, and he's going to be one of the best wide receivers in the NFL next year.
He could easily be wide receiver 1 next year with how lethal he's been so far.
Yeah, I mean, his size alone is just ridiculous.
And his speed, I mean, it's unfair. It's absolutely unfair.
Man, you saw last year in week 2, he ran a deep ball. Stephon Gilmore was in his back pocket. The ball was perfectly thrown.
Literally.
Gilmore got 2 hands on it, and he ripped it out of his hands and ripped Gilmore to the ground and walked in the end zone.
Yep. Absolutely. DK Metcalf is a monster, man. I love to watch him play.
And that was the defensive player of the year from the season before.
Yep.
He just completely embarrassed him.
Yep.
No one does that to Gilmore.
Exactly.
Yeah, like dude is a monster. Nothing bad to say about DK.